Hey everyone, Rob here. Well, I've had probably 3 days of endless frustration trying to get this right-hand side pod on and get everything to fit inside it. Today's video is going to be about the cooling system, and trying to get everything to fit inside that fiberglass housing is a bit of a nightmare sometimes. At any rate, the whole point here of leaving this pod on at the moment is you can see that there is an air scoop at the front and then the radiator on the side. Get a bit more light going on here. So air comes in the front, strictly by the motion of the car. There's no cooling fans. Comes out the back. Now I have modified the car this year and moved the oil cooler from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, and trying to make the new cooler fit has just been nightmarish, and I'm not super happy with how it looks, but it's going to be okay. So follow me around while I put my body work aside so I don't trip over it. And let's talk about cooling, because that was the last step, was making everything fit inside the bodywork. Now the engine sits fairly high in this car, and the radiators are a whole lot lower, which is a little bit different than, say, a street car. With a cooling system, you need a high point for any air bubbles to bleed out to. Okay, so here we have, pardon the stray wires, here we have the thermostat housing. Now when the engine's cold, the coolant's cold, it circulates inside the block until it gets up to an operating temperature. Okay. When that happens, this thermostat, which lives right here, will open. And the water pump will start pumping the hot water through the cooling system. Now these things are kind of known as towers because they are tall, custom-made pieces. Radiator cap on top. The hot water will come up, come out this pipe, go downwards. Comes down here. I love these blue silicone hoses, and I've got them all protected with the black conduit. Comes along, goes into the top of the left-handed radiator, which is not the prettiest radiator you ever saw, but that's how it goes. So the water from the engine goes into the top of this radiator, flows across, drops to the bottom, of course, comes out the bottom of the radiator, and this is a one-piece hose, one piece of silicone tubing that runs across the bottom of the car. Here it is here, continuing underneath the crankshaft pulley and out the other side. Again, packaging and fitting everything in there is quite a job. When the water from the left-hand radiator comes across, it goes into the bottom, pardon me, sorry, goes into the top. I made that mistake once. So the water from the bottom of the left radiator comes across into the top of the right-hand radiator, through the rad, gets cooled some more, goes to the bottom. This line goes back, and it's a little tight to see from here, but if we get over to this side, you can see this elbow coming up into the water pump. And here is the water pump drive belt assembly. Obviously, very different from a street car. There are no alternators. It's strictly just a water pump, and that's it. Now, to make these things work properly, you need somewhere for air to get out. And I don't know if you noticed on the other radiator, but each one of them has a fitting right at the very top. And this is a bleed fitting. So any air bubbles that somehow have gotten into the system, especially when filling up the car and starting it up for the first time in the air, any air in the system will obviously go to the top of the radiators. Both radiators, these lines come off and come together and join at this cross fitting. So left-hand rad, right-hand rad, that's just a cap. And then this line goes upwards and goes into the side of the tower. So there was a constant small flow of water from both radiators coming up into the tower at this point and then joining and dropping down, because the water level is going to run somewhere around here, approximately. So this way, this is a self-bleeding system. Once it's filled, there's never any issues with air bubbles getting trapped anywhere. Poorly designed systems will have that issue. Should there be excess pressure in the system, coolant does physically expand and get larger when it gets hot. At any rate, if the system gets too hot, radiator caps have a spring on them. They're a very stiff spring. They come in different pressures. But this piston will move back against the spring. Excess pressure and fluid will get out this hose. Where'd my hose go? Down this hose here into an overflow container. So this overflow catch can, whatever you want to call it, has a vented hole in the top. The line from the radiator goes in the bottom. So if for whatever reason this system wanted to vent excess fluid and pressure, it doesn't get dumped on the racetrack. It ends up in this catch can. And the cool thing about this is as the engine cools down, the pressures drop, actually creates a vacuum inside the cooling system, and it will suck the fluid back out of that catch can, back up the hose and into the tower, back into the cooling system. What else have we got? Well, this lovely gizmo here, there's an extra fitting that comes off of the tower, and this, let's be gentle with it. This is a temperature sensing bulb. This is a mechanical temperature gauge. This part here is inside the water. When this gets hot, there is a volatile liquid / gas inside this tube. That gas expands and then operates a mechanism inside the water temperature gauge to move the needle. So it's a purely mechanical temperature gauge. There's no electricity required. So these are all attached to the gauge. We have to be gentle with this tube. Obviously, any cracks means the whole thing is useless. So we're just gonna hang that back there just for a second. One other point. Some of you may have noticed an extra piece. This is another piece I have moved. This here is a pressure switch. It was mounted on the left-hand radiator last year. It was awkward for a couple of reasons. This is a 3 pound per square inch pressure switch. So when the engine is up, It's getting warm. The system builds pressure inside, and it'll run probably 15 to 20 psi. If we blew a line, we had a leak, a hose came off, the system is no longer sealed, it's not going to hold that 20 pounds per square inch, it's going to drop. If the pressure drops to 3 psi or less, this switch will close and turn on. Hang on a sec. Turn on the big yellow light. That's my water pressure warning light. These LED lights are fantastic. I can see these even on the sunniest of days. So when I first start up the car, this light is on, and then as it gets warmer, it starts to flicker and go out. So that's my warning of a loss of water pressure. So there's your cooling system. The car has to be in motion to cool it. And that's not a problem. We fire them up and warm them up on the pits before we go down a pre-grid, so we're not driving a cold engine at full speed. So we have 2 rads on this. I've seriously considered removing one radiator because this car has never overheated, even on the hottest of days. But I'm being cautious here. Now, the big modification this year was to add the oil cooler to the right-hand side rather than the left. And essentially, as the air flows in, it's going to go through the oil cooler first, through the radiator, and overboard. I'm confident this will be a good system. And after fighting for days to get everything to fit inside the bodywork, I'm reasonably pleased. The bodywork will not go on until basically the car is ready to go. We have to do, engine runs and engine break-ins and looking for leaks and everything else. So not going to be so bold as to just throw the bodywork on and assume nothing's wrong. So there you go. Oh, one last thing I might want to mention, because a lot of people with race cars, the urban legends and urban myths that go around. Here's one that just won't die. I do run a thermostat. It's a 185 degree, plain Jane, everyday thermostat. So many people swear, it's a race car, you can't run a thermostat. Honestly, my personal opinion, don't believe them. Thermostats, I've run thermostats in every kind of racing vehicle I've owned. They work beautifully. Last little thing maybe to mention on this is that we're not allowed to run antifreeze. We don't need the antifreeze because we're not racing in the winter. But antifreeze is extremely slippery, and if it gets on the racetrack, it's like a skating rink. And then for that reason, though, we just run distilled water. To help the water pump and to help the system, I run this stuff. This is not an ad. Good old water wetter made by Redline Synthetic Oil Company. This is a very colorful additive that you add to the system, and it just helps with corrosion and lubricating the pump, and it's supposed to help the heat transfer of the water to the metal. Who knows? But it's not expensive, and I've always run it. Okay, I can hear my heater kicking on, so it's a good time as any to wrap this one up. See you next time.